to the Revealed Report. I am your host, John Wilson. Well, I'm glad you have decided to come back and be with me another day. Well, you know, the radical left is operating like a mafia. They've been like a mafia for many, many years, many, many decades, and yet they continue to act like a mafia. And some of that is becoming revealed in due time now, as we see. There's a report out. Republicans claim Biden administration enemies list unearthed from Arctic frost investigation. Subtitled, Grassley unveils 197 subpoenas from Biden era Arctic frost operation. And so it's amazing to me that we can go back and we can see the Watergate scandal and think that was anything that scratches the surface to the things that the Biden administration was doing. So let me read to you from this Fox News article, and then I'm going to read to you a Revealed Dispatch article. I quote, Senator Chuck Grassley, Republican of Iowa, released on Wednesday 197 subpoenas that the Biden administration's FBI used to seek testimony and documents related to hundreds of Republicans and GOP entities as part of the Bureau's Arctic frost probe, the precursor to former special counsel Jack Smith's election investigation. Arctic frost was the vehicle by which partisan FBI agents and Department of Justice prosecutors could improperly investigate the entire Republican political apparatus, Grassley said at a press conference. Contrary to what Smith has said publicly, this was clearly a fishing expedition. Standing alongside Grassley, Senator Ron Johnson, Republican of Wisconsin, called the subpoenas nothing short of a Biden administration enemies list. The subpoenas included non-public, confidential grand jury material that Grassley said he obtained through whistleblower disclosures. They sought certain communications with media companies, including Fox News, CBS, Sinclair, and Newsmax, and with any members and aides in Congress. They also sought sweeping financial information from conservative entities. Grassley has been releasing troves of documents related to Arctic frost, a probe he says was politicized and lacked basis. Smith used the probe to bring criminal charges against Trump related to the 2020 election. Lenny Brewer, a lawyer of Smith, said in a statement provided to Fox News Digital that Smith stands by his offer to appear publicly before the Senate and House to testify about his special counsel work. As we informed congressional leaders last week, Jack is happy to discuss his work as special counsel and answer any questions at a public hearing, just like every other special counsel investigating a president has done, Brewer said, adding that Smith wants a public hearing so the American people can hear directly from him. House lawmakers have called on Smith to interview with them behind closed doors, while Grassley has said he is still seeking more information from Smith and not ready for a public hearing. Senator Ted Cruz, Republican of Texas, also raised at the press conference the controversial subpoenas for 8 Republican senators' phone records, which did not include the contents of phone calls, but rather details about when calls were placed and to whom. Cruz said he was also among the targeted senators, but he said his phone company, AT&T, resisted complying with the request and that AT&T was ordered by a federal judge not to inform Cruz about the request for a year. Grassley said Verizon told him that Cruz's office's Verizon's landline was also affected, but did not elaborate. We are going to get the answers of every person who signed off on this abuse of power, and mark my words, there will be accountability, Cruz said, and there should be, signaling that senators' inquiry into Arctic frost was far from over, rightfully so. Smith brought 4 charges against Trump in 2023, alleging he illegally attempted to overturn the election, but the former special counsel encountered numerous hurdles during the federal court proceedings in D.C., and eventually was forced to dismiss the case after Trump won the 2024 election, citing a DOJ policy that discourages prosecuting sitting presidents, end quote. Now, I want to give you the Revealed Dispatch article because I'm going to lead into today's discussion on this. The Revealed Dispatch article, which has not been released yet, so you're getting a pre-release of this. It is entitled Arctic Frost, When Justice Goes Cold. They called it Arctic frost. We call it the blueprint for tyranny, because the same frozen breath that chilled the Trump investigations is the same one breathing down the necks of parents, pastors, patriots, and pro-lifers across this nation. It is not one case, it's a culture. The alphabet agencies have gone from public servants to political soldiers. Let's connect the dots. When pro-life activists prayed outside abortion clinics, the FBI raided their homes with rifles drawn. When parents protested gender madness in Loudoun County, Virginia, the DOJ labeled them domestic terrorists. When BLM burned cities, looted stores, and assaulted officers, Soros-funded DAs bailed them out before the ashes cooled. When January 6 protesters walked through open doors and took selfies, the DOJ threw the book, the bookshelf, and the whole library at them. Meanwhile, Antifa arsonists got lighter sentences than a guy waving an American flag. That's not justice. That's retribution wrapped in bureaucracy. FBI, DOJ, DHS, IRS, OSHA, all working like branches of the same political crime family. The Biden White House tried using OSHA to force vaccines into private workplaces. Then DHS tried to stop landlords from evicting tenants who hadn't paid in over a year, as if property rights were optional. Then came the IRS expansion, 87,000 new agents, not to audit billionaires, but to watch your Venmo account when you split the lunch bill. Because tyranny doesn't always arrive with tanks. Sometimes it shows up with a letter from the IRS stamped final notice. This is the Soros effect. By the prosecutors, control the narrative and silence the opposition. He funds the DAs who refuse to prosecute crime while pouring money into campaigns that criminalize conservatives. It's a two-tier system funded by one ideology, the globalist left's dream of selective justice. They call it equity. We call it political immunity. While Trump faced raid after raid and investigation after investigation, Hunter Biden was busy painting his way out of felonies. The FBI had time to chase parents in PTA meetings, but not Epstein's client list. But now they'll come out and say something because Trump's the president. They had time to storm a pro-life father's home at dawn, but not a single dawn raid for the BLM leaders who laundered donation money into mansions. Arctic frost wasn't the beginning. It was the revelation. The mask finally slipped off. The Justice Department is now Just Us Department. Here's the real danger. When justice goes cold, rage heats up. When people stop believing in fairness, they stop believing in order. And when they stop believing in order, chaos rushes in like a winter storm. The church and the right must stand right now, not for party itself, but for principles, American principles and godly principles. Isaiah said, judgment is turned away backward and justice standeth far off. Truth is fallen in the street. Isaiah 59:14. That's not prophecy anymore. That's the headlines of the day. This isn't about Trump alone. It's about every mom, dad, pastor, business owner, and believer who dared to say, no, I will not bow down to your new gods. They're freezing America into silence and calling it safety, but the truth is fireproof. So keep your Bibles open and your eyes sharp and your convictions hotter than their Arctic frost, because the storm will break. And when it does, it won't be Washington that brings the thaw. It will be people who are praying and standing by biblical principles and America's founding principles. And we need to be praying for the President of the United States. Now, let's go directly into this Arctic frost and the erosion of truth and justice. It's another article of mine. In recent months, the investigation codename Arctic frost has come into public view. According to disclosures from the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee, the Federal Bureau of Investigation launched this probe in April 2022, targeting multiple Republican-linked entities, ultimately leading into the case by Jack Smith against Donald J. Trump. All it was to silence their political opposition. It was just to get him out of the way. Now, the FBI called it Arctic frost. They should have just called it cold justice, because when federal law enforcement spends more time investigating political opponents than protecting Americans, the temperature of trust drops below zero. In April of 2022, the FBI quietly launched a massive investigation, Arctic frost. On paper, it was supposed to be about election integrity. Sound familiar? In reality, it was about one thing: freezing Donald Trump and anyone connected to him out of political existence. That's what the radical left always does. They take their evil agenda, they pack one portion of truth, they hide all their evil agenda behind it, and they give it some noble name so people buy into it as if it's actually something noble. Nearly 100 Republican linked entities were targeted, including Turning Point USA, churches, and political nonprofits. Yes, Charlie Kirk's TPUSA was caught in the blizzard. This was no random snowstorm. Documents now released by the Senate Judiciary Committee showed the Bureau was running Arctic frost months before Trump was even a named criminal subject. They already seized government phones belonging to both Trump and Mike Pence. They didn't have probable cause, they have political cause. The operation reads like a thriller written by a bureaucrat with a grudge. Agents bypassed normal supervisory channels, moved under code names, and looped in the Biden White House. The coordination is now public. Senate letters and whistleblowers confirm it. It's a cross-branch entanglement so messy it makes Watergate look like a snowball fight. But don't expect the legacy media to talk about it. CNN is too busy manufacturing frostbite for Trump's campaign while pretending the FBI didn't just use its power like an ice pick. Remember when the left screamed about protecting democracy? Turns out protecting democracy meant weaponizing democracy as law enforcement. They claim they're stopping fascism by behaving like fascists. Arctic frost wasn't about justice. It was about intimidation. It was the political deep freeze before 2024, a message: step out of line and we'll turn your world into permanent frost. Once institutions lose moral warmth, tyranny doesn't march in wearing jackboots. It drifts in quietly, wrapped in legal jargon and national security briefings. The Bible warns, because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. And when the love of truth grows cold, so does justice. Arctic frost isn't just a scandal, it's a spiritual thermometer. It shows what happens when a nation trades righteousness for revenge. The FBI, DOJ, and White House under Biden can keep what was they were pretending that Arctic frost was routine, but every American paying attention knows it wasn't justice, it was judgment. And the cold won't last forever because every frost breaks when the light returns. So we must keep calling it out for what it is. The radical left kept claiming that Donald Trump is going to go after his political opposition, that he is going to bar them up, he's going to arrest them, he's going to wreck and ruin their lives. You know why they claimed that Trump was going to do that? Is because that's exactly what they were doing. And they were superimposing their principles on Donald Trump and treating him like he was going to do the same thing to them. Now, it is true that Trump is bringing justice to some of his opposition, and they should be brought to justice. Now, this proves something I said a long time ago. I was actually standing against some of my conservative friends and even some of my heroes that are voices on the right. Men I love, men I respect, men I honor, men I look up to, men that inspired me to be another voice in this very moment and time. However, I disagreed with them because they kept saying we should not become a banana republic. I agree, we shouldn't become a banana republic. But the problem is, it's not the right that's going to cause that. It was the radical left that was causing that. And what was happening is the right, the conservative side of the aisle, kept saying we cannot go after a political opposition because we'll become a banana republic. And I told them we're going to become that one way or another as long as the radical left has any power. As long as they're in any seat of power and they have the ability to go after their political opposition, they're going to do it. And so I always said that the right will be cowards and they will lose with so-called dignity and honor. And I don't call it dignity and honor. They said we want to be the principled ones. And what they were doing was allowing the radical left to keep pushing us towards a banana republic, arresting their political oppositions while we do nothing to try to stop it. That is not principled. That is not honorable. That is weak. That is cowardice. I believe in a constitutional republic. I want to see a restoration to our founding principles. I want to go back to what America once was, but we don't do that by weakness. Right now, we have gone beyond what is a standard constitutional republic of America, and we are fighting an ideological, political, and spiritual war, and we must win. Because if we don't, you can see that the radical left has no problem going after pastors. They have no problem going after churches. They have no problem going after pro-lifers. They have no problem going against anybody that would stand against them. I am convinced that the COVID vaccine was more about purging the system than it was about actual health and safety, because the efficacy of the vaccine wasn't seemingly there. And now you can see that there's truth being unveiled when there was all types of lies. I wasn't pro or anti-vaccine, but I was absolute about asking the question, is it effective? Is it good for us? Do we have a 5-year, 10-year, 15, 20-year study on this? And I believe that the people that were saying that they're about choice over your body is nothing more than hypocrites. They're not about any of that. They're about pushing their narrative and redefining the language and spilling out lies and doing whatever they have to do to get the other side to surrender. They don't play by the same rule book. And so what I said is they'll keep going after us and we'll just allow them to keep doing it. We'll allow them to keep doing it. And I believe that the vaccine itself, the mandatory push of the vaccine, was actually about purging the system, purging conservatives out of the military, purging conservatives out of law enforcement, purging conservatives out of corporations and out of private sector business, and purge them, shut down their churches, whatever the case may be. You can see that they wanted only the people that would say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, we will bow down to you, if sir and ma'am doesn't offend them, because, sometimes they get offended if you don't use the proper pronoun. All this is a push to get people to bend the knee to their intimidation so they can begin to flip the whole system and create what they think is a utopia that's going to save the whole entire world. They believe they're going to save everybody from world hunger. They believe they're going to save everybody from tornadoes and tsunamis and volcanoes and all types of wildfires and injustices, that if you give them enough power to legislate enough laws and enforce them and then redistribute your wealth, they're going to cure all the problems of the world. And yet every time they're in power, they bring nothing but tyranny, destruction, dystopian nature of hell. They bring nothing but misery and pain and high prices and everybody living under the boot of their rule and order. And so what you see is that they were trying to infiltrate all the systems they could, and they were trying to weaponize all the systems against their political opposition. And most of the Republicans said, well, we can't do anything about it. We can't go after our opponent, because if we do, we're going to become a banana republic. Well, the truth of the matter is they already pushed us towards a banana republic. Do you remember what they were doing with Donald Trump? Can you believe they were trying to go after Turning Point USA? And so they thought, well, Trump gets in power, he's going to do it too, because this is what we've been doing to him. And also they wanted to paint that picture so that he would not bring justice to them. That's the trick of the radical left. They said, well, if he does this, he does this, he does this. And then if he goes after any of them, and if any of them are arrested and any of them are behind bars, then they're going to say, see, we told you he's the fascist. We told you that he is Hitler all over again. We told you that he was going to weaponize the very systems of power and he was going to go after his political opposition. You thought we were crazy, but see, we told you so. That is the grifting, lying game of the radical left. And we need to understand the vices of our enemy. We understand Satan's vices. We understand how they work. What they're doing is they're trying to do two things: intimidate him not to go after them. Also, they are claiming that he will, because that's what they were doing. Or two, they're trying to paint the picture, if he does go after them, see, we told you, this is what that monster is all about. And so this is the game that they label, and people usually play by the intimidation factor that they bring. But I'm glad that our president is not a coward. I'm glad he's not letting their labels. I'm glad he's not letting their narratives. I'm glad he's not letting their slander dictate him. As a matter of fact, he had many of people, even on the Republican side of the aisle, questioning him with his tariffs. Even good conservative media outlets, some of my heroes, were questioning him, not sure if they were standing with him with his tariffs. Now they're starting to come to the side that I've been on the whole entire time, that tariffs are a good thing, that it's going to bring people to the table in negotiation so we're not ripped off anymore. Now, what I didn't really see is how much this is actually playing into the AI race and how much this is playing into rare earth minerals. And he began to see something that most of us didn't see in that light. And a lot of times we criticize him to find out He's right. He's got a plan. He's not just a madman. And so I'm glad that we have a president that's not bowing the knee to the pressure of all of their intimidating factors, all of their slander, all of their lies. Let me remind you who it was that was weaponizing the very departments of power and the unelected bureaucrats to go after the opposition. That was Lion Biden, that was Calamity Kami Harris, and guess what? It was also Barack Hussein before that. They had no problem with expanding the IRS to go after every political opposition. They have no problem with using OSHA to try to purge out the system if you don't bow to their mandates. They have no problem using the Department of Justice and the FBI to go against you if you don't want some boy claiming to be a girl walking into the bathroom and raping your daughter in Virginia. They're willing to go after you. They're willing to allow protesters to throw Molotov cocktails in your pro-life centers. And if you dare go and protest against abortions, then they're going to send the Department of Justice and the FBI after you because they're going to call you a national domestic terrorist. And you wonder why the radical left has so many violent people that come against this, willing to assassinate their political opposition. Because when you label our ideas as dangerous and violence itself, then that begins to justify people to stand up and defend themselves. But our speech is not violence just because it comes against your ideology, just because it comes against your reprobate nature. That is not hatred. That is not violence. That is a difference of principles. And we have the right to bring it to the table reasoning and to debate that, to discuss that. And we see whose ideas win and what's going to shape the culture. That's the beauty of America. But the radical left, they hate America. They want to erode that away because as long as we have a constitution as strong like it is, it gives us the ability to speak out. Who was it that said we couldn't investigate the Hunter Biden case? Who was it that began to align with big tech and began to silence anybody who questioned the very origin of COVID or where it came from? Was gain and function research taking place? Were we funding it with tax dollars? They came after us because they were merging a public-private partnership to try to stop us in our tracks. And they were even trying to pick winners and losers in what's supposed to be a free market capitalistic society. And they were changing it from shareholder to stakeholder capitalism. And they were using the FDIC to slap down penalties on banks that would be doing business transactions with any risky business that they deemed to be risky. Shut down gun manufacturers, shut down ammunition manufacturers, shut down anybody who didn't push climate change, anybody who did not stand up and fight for social justice and become a Mamdani, which, by the way, we're praying he loses, and we're praying that Cuomo loses too, and somehow Sliwa wins. I don't think that's going to happen, but I wish it would. But you see, the radical left is the one that is going after the political opposition. And they were scared of Trump getting in power because they were scared that Trump was going to turn it back and come after them. Actually, Trump is showing great restraint. I think he's showing greater restraint than many of us would. If you were to go through my wife's underwear drawer, if you were to try to go and lock my kids up in prison and jail, I hope my godly principles restrain me, but it would be very tempting to go after you if you're waging that kind of war on me and my children and my wife. It would take a lot of restraint for me not to want to go after you and lock you up for the rest of your life. So I think that our president should be honored for the restraint that he is showing. He could be going at this a whole lot harder, but I am glad that justice may finally be served. And if they're guilty, they need the book thrown at them, because unless we begin to do something about it, the radical left, if they get empowered again, they're coming back with a vengeance. And this is why we should not have any Democrat elected at all. No Democrat should hold any position of authority and power in our nation again. If they were real Democrats, they need to flip sides anyways, because the Democrat Party of today is not the JFK Party of before. It's not the Grover Cleveland Party. The Democrat Party is an anti-God, anti-Israel, anti-American party. And for anybody who is not that, why are you joining league? The Bible says, how can two walk together except they agree? You know, I'm waiting for Fetterman. I'm sorry. I'm waiting for Fetterman to finally become an independent or Republican. I don't know how that guy's still a Democrat. And I never thought he would actually be the voice of reasoning for the left. But he is more so than the rest of them. Who was it that was pushing Build Back Better and trying to weaponize everything and trying to merge with corporations and force that down on the American people, bypassing your constitutional rights? Was that President Trump or was that lying Biden? Who was selling us out to China? Was that President Trump or lying Biden? Who was trying to push more of a surveillance state? Was that President Trump or lying Biden? Who was allowing, after the January 6th Capitol riot, to begin to expand the bureaucrats and even use your local mail service, the U.S. Postal Service, to try to spy out on your social media and narc you back to the government so that they can begin to put you on a watch list? Who was that? Who was it that began to incentivize neighbors to rat out on other neighbors during COVID-19? Was that President Trump or was that Democratic governors like Gavin Newsom or Mussolini, whichever you prefer? He fits both categories. Or J.B. Pritzker, yeah, the guy who's, I guess, won millions of dollars in blackjack in Vegas. I'm sure there's nothing going wrong with the money and how he got it. I'm sure nobody's buying him, right? And yet, they claim that President Trump is all of these things. And you know how they did it? By saying they were fighting for election integrity. You mean the same people that doesn't want you to show a driver's license to have to vote? Because I guess if you're anything but white, you can't get a driver's license. I mean, that's not racist. If you're anything but white, you can't get a driver's license and you can't get yourself. Okay. My question is, then how are they going to, how do 18-year-old men and women, how do 21-year-old rather, how do they go into any bars? How do they go into any places where they have to show an ID? But see, the radical left, I mean, they make one racist, stupid statement after another, say they can't get a driver's license. And so therefore, since they don't have a driver's license, they can't show an ID. And yet also, I guess they can't drive there to vote. So we're going to have to go and use mail-in voting. I guess all of them are putting it outside their door because they're not going to the post office because they can't drive. It's one racist, stupid statement after another, and yet they claim that Donald Trump is the racist. He's the Ku Klux Klan 2.0. He's the Gestapo. He's the brown shirt. He's the Nazi. He's the fascist. And really what it is, they're claiming us doing everything that they themselves were doing. They were merging public-private partnership in a very fascistic way with ironic, a globalized agenda that looked like Marxism. They were the ones that wanted to push Great Reset. They were the ones that wanted to tell you couldn't have a gas oven. You can't have a gasoline vehicle. They were the ones that were wanting to control you from cradle to grave and saying, oh, we're going to take care of you, while they bring on more and more debt. They begin to redistribute your wealth. They begin to enlarge the overbloated Washington, more government bureaucracies, and then they weaponize that to come against you. Now, I want to get to the second portion of this. This is what allows Candace Owens and Tucker, Mark Levin's words, Carlson, to say the stupid things they're saying today and peddle all of the true conspiracy theories that they are peddling, because we have every right to question things of the government, because the radical left lied to us over and over and over again. They pushed real conspiracies that became actual fact. And every time you said that they were doing it, they called you a conspiracy theorist, even though it was actually true. And so now we have Candace Owens, I call her Jihadi Candy, and we have Tucker Carlson's, after Mark Levin's words, that now can peddle real conspiracies and get people to buy into the sensationalism of that, because they say they're standing against the lying government and they're using the past government administration to push that. Also, what they're doing is they're trying to speak truth to power in their own eyes, and they're trying to be revolutionary heroes. Now, I don't have time to talk about it tonight, but I really, really do want to talk about it. I have a great concern, and I know this might be hard for some people to hear at first, but please hear me, because tomorrow I'll bring the actual clip to you. I know we're supposed to do the Faith and Freedom Friday Faith and Freedom edition. Maybe we'll try to do the Friday Faith and Freedom edition, but I feel like I really absolutely need to talk about this subject matter. And that is, while I love J.D. Vance, I have a great concern with J.D. Vance when it comes on the stance of Israel and Hamas. There's things he just said that I believe is a great indicator that should alarm us, that should concern us. I'm concerned about where J.D. Vance is on the Israel-Hamas situation. And tomorrow I will talk about that. I'll play the clip of what he said. This is why I've been saying I love J.D. Vance. There's many things I agree with him on. I am concerned when it comes to Israel and the Hamas situation. Part of the reason I actually right now tend to lean towards Marco Rubio. I really like Marco Rubio right now. If I had to say who's I think the strongest one doing the best, it's probably Marco Rubio. I'm not anti-J.D. Vance. Please know that. I'm not anti-J.D. Vance. But I am concerned of what the future of the MAGA movement is after Donald Trump. And so I want to talk about that tomorrow because that's a great concern to me. Now, I know there's people, I had it said to me, watch this. I had it said to me, oh, here's another one being bought by AIPAC. Israel, will you send me the check yet, man? We can really use it to expand our network. Please, what's taking you so long? You owe me a lot of money. I've been talking. Look, I've been defending you, Israel. You owe me a lot of money. I like my microphone, but I'll get an even nicer one. Where's it? I'll get a better camera. Come on, Israel. Hurry up with the check. So tomorrow I do want to talk about J.D. Vance, though. I want to talk about my concern, and I am praying for J.D. Vance. I'm not anti-J.D. Vance, but I'm praying for J.D. Vance, and I'm hoping the right people get into his ear and begin to advise him, because I have a concern about the future state of Israel after Trump is no longer with us. So I want to talk about that, and we'll see if we can wrap that into the Friday Faith and Freedom edition. America, I love you. Remember, it's not Donald Trump that was weaponizing the departments of power to go against political opposition. He is trying to bring justice. It was Lion Biden, Calamity Kamala Harris. It was the Clintons. It was the Obamas that were trying to set up a system to silence all of us to push their Great Reset agenda. Mask behind Build Back Better. Anybody remember that? Or has the news cycle been so fast that people forgot about Build Back Better? And by the way, it wasn't Biden who made Build Back Better the slogan. Klaus Schwab was using it. Other powerful people around the world and leaders were using it. And it was the Great Reset UN 2030 agenda. Maybe we'll do a whole episode, give you the animations, the drawing board, and break that down so we never forget what the radical left was trying to do to us. So that way we remember who the true dictators are. Well, the church will be standing tomorrow because Jesus said, upon this rock I have built my church. The gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And speaking of that, join me tonight, 7:30 p.m. for the Oracle podcast, where I will be diving into Revelation chapter 5. So if you're one of my audience fans that love the Bible and you love diving into the depths of God's word, join me tonight here in about 24 minutes, actually, and counting, as we dive into Revelation chapter 5. If you haven't purchased the Final Flame, I would behoove you, if you like novel mystery thrillers and you like truth packed into it and with some Christian principles, but entertaining and has a level of romance, you ought to consider purchasing the Final Flame on Amazon. If you want a signed edition, you can email us at revealedpublications@gmail.com, or you can email us at revealedradionetwork@gmail.com. We can give you the details on how to get your signed edition of the Final Flame. There has been a slight postponement on 3 books that I have coming. They are all coming in the month of November. One of them is the Revealed Kids Bedtime Stories book. And another one is A Living Sacrifice, God's Blueprint for Revival. And another one is Blessed and Broke, How a Nation Lost God and Gained Debt and How We Can Be Restored. Well, the church will be still standing tomorrow, but if the Republic hasn't been totally burned down yet, I will see you tomorrow on the Revealed Report. I love you, America. God bless you.